I want to thank all of you for the warm welcome in a freezing Berlin. Berlin is resisting us, and Spring has decided to boycott Berlin for this time. I'm not complaining because my hosts are superb. I am sure that almost all of you, if not all of you, have followed the events that are taking place in Kenya, and I will address them comprehensively. But before I do so, I want, in a cursory manner, deal with some of the comments and questions indirectly asked by 2 or 3 speakers. I am in the national resistance movement. Maybe the name will mutate, maybe the name will remain the same, following your quote-unquote handshake. I'm not sure. That will become clear in the next few days. I am not a member of NASA. I think I've made this very clear everywhere I've been, even when I was in Kenya, that I'm not a member of NASA, I'm not a member of ODM. I joined and head the national resistance movement for a very specific purpose. And we are not suicidal. We are not going to commit suicide. We are not interested in suicide. We don't support suicide. We are not reckless. We are not careless. And we are very disciplined. We are focused. We are principled. And we are only dealing with national issues that affect the majority of Kenyans. We are not concerned about the issues that affect the elite or the ruling class. We don't belong to the ruling class as the national resistance movement, starting from the top to the bottom. We are uncompromising on those issues. We are unbowed and courageous on those issues, and we are not going to surrender, so that you know that. We say that without equivocation and without apology, because we did not borrow anybody's head when we formed the NRM. We did not seek anybody's permission. We are not in existence courtesy of anyone. NRM is not a political party and is not an NGO. It was not formed to make anybody money, and it is not for sale. We did not form the NRM to form government. We did not form the National Resistance Movement Kenya in order to contest for or to win elections. The National Resistance Movement Kenya, not NRM that Matiang'i purportedly banned. The NRM band is a Ugandan organization led by one Yoweri Museveni, Kaguta. And it is the ruling government in Uganda. So he is okay, he can ban that. But he has not banned the National Resistance Movement Kenya. It was established to resist despotism in Kenya. The tendency by leaders in Kenya to believe, falsely, that they were born leaders, that God created them to lead, to rule, to impose their will on the majority of the people. We reject that completely. The notion that only a few families have the right, the privilege to govern Kenya, and that if they don't give you their blessing, you cannot lead, you cannot govern Kenya. We also reject that completely. We reject any monarchical tendencies from whatever quarter, whether it is from NASA, from Jubilee, from whatever quarter. We reject the tendency of theocracy, like the rule in Iran, where a fiat is given for whatever reason and everybody has to follow as if we don't have brains of our own. We reject that completely because it is inimical to democracy. Democracy is a system where people have free will. You have a free conscience. You know what right and wrong is. You use your head to discern evidence and facts, and you use reason to determine your path freely and unhampered. That you don't bend to intimidation, threats, bribery, or any kind of influence extraneous to the issues that affect you. We are scientific in approach. We are materialist in orientation, meaning if something is not concrete, if you don't understand it, you can't verify it, you can't test it, it is a myth, it must be rejected. We don't believe in myths. So a handshake is nothing if there is no substance to it. Therefore, it has to be rejected. A handshake, I can also have a handshake. Every one of us with hands, and there are people, unfortunately, without hands. But even they can have a handshake metaphorically, meaning it's just a greeting. A greeting cannot have anything in it other than a greeting. In any event, Kenya does not belong to 2 people or 3 people or 4 people or 100 or 1 million. Kenya is a country made up of 45 million citizens. Each one of them full citizens with a birthright to be Kenyan. Each one of them having only one vote. There is no one, however powerful they are, however wealthy they are, who has more than one vote. There is no one. They may own what looks like the entire world, but they honestly only have one vote. And constitutionally, voting is a secret process, even in Kenya. Meaning that even Uhuru Kenyatta would not know whom Margaret Kenyatta voted for, even if he wanted to know. Each one of us go to that booth alone. We presumably vote for one person. For each seat, we put that vote in the ballot box. It does not bear the name of the person who cast it. And when it is counted and tallied, nobody knows whose vote it is. Even today, Uhuru Kenyatta or Raila Odinga will not be able to prove which one is their vote if they open the ballot boxes to examine them. They wouldn't. Therefore, no one, absolutely no one, has the right to tell you to go left or right by force or through compulsion. If they do that, and I know they do that, that is a dictatorship. If they enforce that by force, they are despots. That is why I call the 2 individuals despots. Because they expect me to agree with them through force, physical force, psychological force, mental force, social force, political force. And when I disagree with them, as I do, strongly, they break into my door, they destroy my house, they abduct me by force, they detain me incommunicado, they torture me, then they take me, put me in the plane, and tell me, goodbye, you're not a Kenyan. That I will not accept until death. That I will reject with every fiber in my body. And it does not matter how strong you are, how powerful you are, how influential you are, how rich you are. In my little way, I will reject you, and I've rejected them completely. I am not influenced, and I'm not impressed by money. I am not impressed by money. I am not impressed by power, that you have big guns, you have big tanks, you are trying to impress me. You will not be able to impress me. What impresses me, and I hope impresses you, and what formed the basis of the national resistance movement is integrity. That is the DNA that makes a civilized human being. The ability to judge people based on merit and merit only. So if you're able to contribute, let's say to national debate, you only come with facts backed by evidence, you reason using logic, and yes, you will convince me. But if you come there shouting emptily and threatening me, I will not be convinced. You may come quietly, you may come loudly, but as long as you have all those ingredients, we will be persuaded. So what is it concretely that we set out to reject? I was going there. What triggered the formation of the NRM was the egregious assault on the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. Chapter 1 of the Constitution of Kenya says, sovereignty vests with the people of Kenya. That's where power is. Power, authority, decision-making vests with the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya went to the polls on August 8th, 2017. They lined up peacefully. They voted overwhelmingly. And Cambridge Analytica, together with Safaricom and the National Intelligence Service and Jubilee Mandarins, decided, working together with the IBC, that they were going to collect these numbers, take them to somewhere they told us was the clouds. Although I fly in the clouds, I've never seen those clouds of theirs. They know where they are. They told us they took them to the clouds, then from the clouds to France. Why they are taking them to France, I don't know. Then they embargoed them in France, and they never came back. But we saw the numbers, and some of us have had access to the server, which they have not opened, despite a court order from the Supreme Court of Kenya, that Raila Odinga defeated Uhuru Kenyatta resoundingly. That is now beyond debate. Even if Raila is going to shake Uhuru's hand 10 times, I will say so, and I will continue saying so to his face. That you may have surrendered His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, but you won an election. Shaking hands is not going to change that fact. Just like he did not change the fact in 2007 when he defeated Kibaki. I never changed even after that time. And I never recognized Kibaki as the president of Kenya. And I never entered the State House of Kenya up to today. I'm one of those few national figures in Kenya who has never stepped into State House because I've had no reason to. Because I've never recognized the people occupying it. Because they are not occupying it for me or for you or for the majority of Kenyans. There is nothing that they are doing in State House that represents your interest. So after Raila Odinga defeated Uhuru Kenyatta, they decided to proclaim Uhuru Kenyatta as the president. And it went to the Supreme Court because Raila Odinga eventually challenged those results. The Supreme Court looked at the facts and concluded, like the majority of us, that that election was flawed through and through, and they nullified the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as duly elected as president of Kenya. They nullified the declaration. That is a very important point. They did not nullify the elections because nobody petitioned against the elections. In law, you only petition against the announcement of so-and-so having been elected. They did not state how many votes Raila Odinga got vis-a-vis how many votes Uhuru Kenyatta got and other people. Therefore, we are legally entitled to assert, as we do, that Raila Odinga won, because the Supreme Court did not say he did not win. The Supreme Court simply said Uhuru Kenyatta did not win. So that's a distinction with a difference. Number two, we actually had people access the server and give us the results. And on the basis of those results, I swore Raila Odinga in. Kajwang did not swear Raila Odinga in. Kajwang was wearing a gown. Kajwang wore a gown and stood behind us, but he did not swear anybody in. Now, because of our neo-colonial tendencies, we thought the gown is the function. There was only one person who swore Raila in, and it was me. I'm not taking credit where it is not due. Raila Odinga knows that. And he even said that himself after the function. He even asked me, Miguna, what was he doing there? I don't know what he was doing there. Nobody told him to wear the gown. So, but you know Kenya and how opportunistic our politicians are. There are things I will not be able to say, but there are things I will say. So I swore Raila in on January 30th on the basis of those results, following threats that we would be charged with treason. So my response was very simple. You say this is treasoners that have committed treason, take me to court. Charge me. Let's face each other in court with facts, with evidence, with the law. And as you can see, they couldn't. Yes, they arrested me. Yes, they pretended to charge me in Kajiado, not in Nairobi, after they had been ordered 7 times to take me to the Milimani court in Nairobi. But did they pursue the case? No, they abandoned it and put me in the plane. Why would you deport, quote unquote, deport a Kenyan born in Kenya who has committed treason? Even if you are a foreigner. You have committed treason in Germany. You want to replace Angela Merkel. But instead of trying you in Berlin, they take you to New York and say you can have him. And they're not charging you in New York. You are a free man in New York. But you just try to replace a government. Another thing you don't know, I don't quibble. I don't equivocate with the fact that I want to replace Uhuru Kenyatta. Legally, constitutionally. It's not an issue. Yes, I want to remove him from power. I'm allowed to say that. It's not illegal to say that I want to remove a government. The only thing that is illegal is if you do it illegally or if you do it unconstitutionally. Having people gather in Nairobi in large numbers and they chase away Uhuru Kenyatta, that's purely legal. Completely legal. Because it is the people that are supposed to put him in power. And if the same people decide that they don't want Uhuru Kenyatta as their president, purely legal to chase him away from power, peacefully. 100%. Do you understand? So, and I also want to acquit any doubt that anybody thinks that if you want to replace a government, then you're violent. No. Violence is not the expression of a thought or opinion or intention or commitment. That is not violent. As you're aware, NRM has not shot at anyone. NRM has not destroyed anyone's property. NRM has not threatened anyone, starting from me. You've not heard me threaten anything except that I'm going to ban Uhuru Kenyatta's portrait. Again, legal. In law, that is called protected speech. It is an expression of my desire to see Uhuru Kenyatta cease being the president of Kenya. And because he's a legitimate, he should not occupy that position. And Raila Odinga is not the one who creates legitimacy. Just because he says he recognizes Uhuru does not make Uhuru legitimate. And nobody is going to challenge me to say, because Raila is the one who contested elections, therefore Uhuru is legitimate. No. Because contesting elections as a candidate is not owning Kenyans. Sovereignty belongs to Kenyans. It vests in Kenyans, not on any specific individual. And not only one person contested elections. Many contested. If the people decide they are not interested in any one of them, they still have the right to put in position of power and authority whoever they want. And that's what I want. And that can only be done democratically in a free, fair, verifiable, and credible election, which we have not had. So that's number one. That's why NRM was formed. So that once we are able to remove these despots from power, then we can restructure the Electoral Commission, do away with the atrocities committed by the police, because you know they are agents of Jubilee. Because once you are in a position of power, you can determine that. You would have the leverage to do that. Then you can conduct a free and fair election. And it is not nuclear physics. It's not that difficult. It was done in Cuba by 45 people who crossed, when they crossed into Havana, there were only 15. And they managed with commitment, focus, and discipline. In Uganda, Museveni did it alone with some homeless boys in Luero Triangle. It's been done all over the world. Those ones were examples of the armed struggle. When Mandela disagreed with Chief Lutuli, Chief Albert Lutuli in 1963, following Lutuli's winning of the Nobel Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, which probably the handshakers are looking for. Mandela told Chief Lutuli, look, we are not interested in this peace. We've been doing this dance for so long, and it has ended us nowhere. We are going to form Umkhonto we Sizwe, the spear of the nation. And we are going to fight apartheid with the only language they understand. Because you know, even if you're dancing, if you're tap dancing, and the other guy is dancing rumba, there will be no harmony in the dance. You will be stepping on each other. But both dances are very beautiful dances, right? If somebody is playing violin and I'm listening to Lingala, there is disharmony. Lingala is a beautiful music. Violin is very nice. But you're mixing the two. You can't have that, even in politics. What these people are doing, they are mixing things up. We had reached a point where we were going to take the despots on, having sworn Raila in. So number one, electoral justice was going to be addressed. And the NRM are the ones who organized the swearing in, not NASA. It was not a NASA event. Therefore, they cannot take it up. As you could see, 3 so-called NASA principals did not attend. So how could it have been a NASA affair when they did not attend? As you could see, the so-called committee for the swearing in, you did not see them up there. We had put that as a decoy. They were there to address the press. They were not supposed to be the ones doing anything. And they didn't know anything that was going to take place. All right? So once we took charge, and we are not playing games, the state felt threatened. And they still do. So the so-called deportation was out of threat. So 1, electoral justice. 2, is restructuring the lopsided state that is sitting on Kenyans, exploiting them, and creating the gap, widening the gap between the rich and the poor. We have only 2 tribes in Kenya. You guys are talking of Luo, you are talking, and that is the nonsense we saw from the discussion after the handshake. that, oh, we are going to bring national reconciliation, tribes are going to get. There was no problem with the tribes. We didn't have it on August 8th. We've not had it in Kenya. We have never had a tribal war in Kenya. On August 8th, one candidate happened to have been a Kikuyu. Biological accident happened, and one was born speaking and subscribing to a culture called a Gikuyu. He happens to be Uhuru Kenyatta. He does not represent Kikuyus. The average Kikuyu citizen have no commonality with Uhuru Kenyatta at all. They didn't go to the same school. Very few Kikuyus went to St. Mary's. Very few Kikuyus went to university in Boston. Very few Kikuyus drink the way Uhuru drinks or smokes the way Uhuru smokes. Very few Kikuyus are billionaire. The billionaire club in Kenya is very tiny, and they are from every community. Very few Kikuyus stole the amount of land Kenyatta stole. Very few Kikuyus go to exclusive clubs and go to watch cars racing in Dubai. There is nothing in common between Uhuru and them. Uhuru has never worked his entire life. The majority of Kikuyus are very hardworking in the slums and in their villages and in their farms. Uhuru does not know how to hold a djembe or a hoe, or how to cut or even trim a tree. Uhuru does not drive himself. Uhuru has never paid for his meal, has never earned his meal, because he was born a billionaire and will die a billionaire. So there is no relationship, no connection, no nexus, no link between Uhuru and this so-called Kikuyuism. The same with Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga happens to be a Luo, yes, but Raila Odinga was born to the family of a vice president. When he was a teenager, his father was vice president. He was chauffeured to school. He was brought here in Germany when he was in primary school. This is where he grew up, right here in Germany. He didn't grow up with us in the village. I grew up in the village. I took care of my cattle, or my neighbor's cattle, went to school most of the time barefoot until I went to secondary school. We were chased away for fees because we had not paid tuition. These are problems alien to them. We've gone hungry. They have never gone hungry. We've gone jobless. They have never gone jobless. They have never applied for a job. You see, you talk of your resume, your CV. They don't know what that means. They don't get jobs because of their CV. They don't know about the GPA, that your GPA is bad, so now you have to study more. Their GPA have always been bad, but it has not mattered. They don't understand how you are so concerned about GPA. A lot of these guys, they don't have the degrees you have. Ask yourself, why are they rich and you are poor, and yet they are not even half qualified as you? And yet you don't even ask those questions. So this has been the problem. Now, to just briefly refer to some of the things that somebody said. So now, between the 9th and now, has anything changed? Nothing has changed. Between August 8th, 2017 and now, has the situation changed? The IBC is still exactly the same way it was on August 8th. The chairman is the same, the CEO is the same, the commissioners is the same except Rosemary Akombe, Dr. Rosemary Akombe, who ran away saying this commission cannot run a credible democratic election. And Musando is not there because he was murdered by the people who wanted to fraudulently take power by force, which they did after killing him. Have they told you who killed Musando? No. The gap between the rich and the poor, has it narrowed? No. The unemployment in Kenya, has it gotten better? No. It has gotten worse. Now look at this. As this was going on, Raila Odinga told us repeatedly, and I respect him, He has earned my respect because of his struggles over the years. And we give him that. He also worked when I was there, fighting for the Constitution. We give him that. He went to prison, to detention for 8.5 years. That is very difficult, right? So he did all that. But Raila Odinga also told us, and he has not withdrawn what he told us. He said this guy stole more than 50 billion, in fact, 500 billion Kenya shillings from the Eurobond. He told us that. This guy stole from us over 500 billion. These guys, using Anne Waiguru in the Ministry of Devolution, and Anne Waiguru, by the way, sued Raila Odinga, and the case is still in court, and it is going to trial. Anne Waiguru stole more than 50 billion shillings of public money that she used for buying houses, and they were carrying this money in sacks. We did not recover that money. Then the healthcare scandal came, the Ministry of Health. They stole another maybe 25 billion. We know that. The Auditor General has told us recently, we also know this, that in 1 year, last year up to now, the presidency, consisting of Uhuru Kenyatta's office and William Ruto's office, stole more than 2.5 billion that they cannot account for in 1 year. That in the last 5 years, the government lost by theft things they cannot account for, over 50 billion. In addition to all these other things that I've been mentioning in all the ministries. And of course, you know that they are stealing land, they are degrading the environment, and more worse than that, this one gets me. From August, when Raila Odinga said that the elections were not credible and the Supreme Court agreed, we started demonstrating. I was a candidate in those elections. There was no credible election in Nairobi either. Sonko did not win. I did not say I won, but I'm saying Sonko did not win. It was completely incredible how those people just altered the results blatantly. To the extent that it was Raila Odinga and ODM that paid the two people that contested Sonko's election, not Kidero. Because remember, Kidero recognized Sonko, conceded because he wanted to protect himself from being prosecuted for having stolen billions himself. So immediately threw down the towel and said, I surrender. I never did. Even though they did not declare me number 1 or number 2 or number 3, they said I was number 4. But I never conceded. In fact, in Kenya, I'm probably the only one who did not concede. Because on reflection, now Raila has conceded. But we were only 2. Now he has conceded. I will never do that. You can't concede when the elections are so tarnished with irregularities, illegalities, and fraud. So Raila Odinga told us, and I believed him, because that is the reason why I ended up working with him and on the same side, that we cannot allow this to continue. Because if we do, if we let this one go, it means these people will institutionalize election fraud, and we will never, ever have a free, fair, and credible elections ever again. That people will sit in corners, wherever those corners are, even abroad, because someone just sent me information that Cambridge Analytica were streaming the results that you are seeing on the TVs after August 8th from France. They were doing that themselves. I have it. I have the information. You know, near Monaco. So this is known. We started demonstrating. The results were rejected. Raila supporters were then shot down like wild animals. They were killed badly. They were brutalized badly. And nobody has been brought to book for it. What the hell are you conceding for? Even just for the sake of the people, your supporters who have been killed, out of respect for them, out of solidarity with them, out of the recognition that the person who wants you to concede has not even acknowledged that he did something wrong. Uhuru has not acknowledged anything. Even if you were to say, I agree, he defeated me. So let's assume that you went through some magical transformation at night and you woke up and you got a revelation that in fact you lost an election you had won, and you want to recognize somebody whom you have defeated, and everybody says you have defeated. You can do that, but the person must take accountability for the people he has killed. Uhuru is on record congratulating police officers that killed these people. And there are about 400 innocent souls, including babies. Babies younger than that one sitting there. Baby Pendo was 6 months old. A 6-month-old baby was murdered by the police. Baby Mora was another 9 months old, I believe 9 months, was murdered by the police. Master Mutinda was 9 years old. These are people who did not know Kikuyu, Luo. You know, they play like children. Children do not know this thing, tribalism. They don't understand it. It doesn't apply to them. They were killed. So there was no tribal contest, because if there was, you would kill the militants representing the ethnic groups that you are saying are fighting. These people were killed. Then they mowed down 18 innocent youth that had gone to welcome Raila Odinga with me when he came from the States. Youth I organized on November 17th. Was it November or October? No, it was October. It was October. October the 17th in Nairobi. Very peaceful. We were only on the road. We are walking from the airport. We are just carrying twigs. We are happy. We are dancing. We are chanting. We are wearing T-shirts. We are saying resist. We are not threatening anyone. 18 of them killed like insects. Nobody has taken accountability for that. Then after, actually during and after the so-called election of October 26th, the coronation exercise. No, it was November 17th. It was after the coronation exercise. After the coronation exercise, we lost more. Many, many more. Because if you remember October 26th, it was war. War in the sense that the GSU, the police, the AP, probably even the military, because they were in these funny-looking vehicles, tanks, invaded all NASA zones and took them over. I mean, I looked at the pictures that I got from Kisumu of these things standing in all neighborhoods, and you thought, this is a war zone. It looked like Beirut in the 1980s and 1990s. Beirut in Kisumu, in Mombasa, in Migori, in Homa Bay, in Kisumu, in Kakamega, in Busia. Everywhere it was just tanks. And they started shooting without any justification. A lot of people were killed. They brought Mungiki with pangas, machetes, and with all manner of crude weapons. And these people were cutting people up and shooting them all over the place. A lot of people have been maimed. A lot of people have been injured. A lot of people have been killed. Because they did not want Uhuru Kenyatta to railroad them into recognizing a coronation exercise as an election. This is why we formed as NRM. This is what we wanted to change. And it has not changed. So, when we did this, we did not do this as NASA. We did this as patriots trying to make our country live by the rule of law. We wanted our country to respect democracy and democratic principles. We wanted the Constitution to count, not to be subverted. We wanted to be free human beings. And to tell you the truth, I remember one of my friends in Toronto telling me that this could happen before the elections of August 8th. And I remember telling her, no, Kenya is not Uganda. We have gone so far. After the new constitution and how we've held these other elections, they will try. They will try rigging, whatnot, but to take power by force, that Kenyans will not accept. That was me talking just a few months to the election. It actually happened. Not once, twice. Within 6 months. And all they did is now to bring force to bear so that people surrender, occupy the streets, shoot at people, cause fear and mayhem, then say we caused it. Then spread the propaganda. Now, as you can see from Cambridge Analytica, it was all planned. So that eventually the international press buys the propaganda, they start spreading it. The diplomats, foreign diplomats, Western diplomats, start buying the propaganda, start spreading it, which they did, telling us to recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as the president. Some of us said, no, we are not going to. We are not going to recognize someone who has taken power by force, fraudulently, and is now using force to make us surrender. That is why NRM was formed. Therefore, because the reasons for which it was formed are still there, because the conditions are still there, because the people who perpetrated the fraud are still there, we will not disband. We will not surrender. We will not recognize Uhuru's presidency as legitimate. We are not going to do it. And we will continue with the struggle. It will be hard. It might be harder. But if you recall, if you have a sense of history, there was a time that there was slavery in the world, that black people were taken from the continent and shipped out as slaves in chains. There was such a time. And kept outside here in Europe, North America, and other places as slaves. We broke the chains. Slavery ended. Slave trade ended. Then there was a time when there was colonialism. The British came. They took over our country, our land, and established the authority by force because they had the gunpowder. They had the gun, and we had no gun. We struggled, we resisted, we fought with every weapon we could get. We fought through poetry, we fought through songs, we fought through dance, we fought through rungus, we fought through machetes, we threw stones. We did everything until we defeated the British. So what is this? A piece of cake. What is this? I mean, the Jubilee government is not a superpower. The British was. The British Empire was the dominant military authority in the world. It was a superpower at the time. We defeated the British. Now, at the time, they did divide and rule too. I'll give you a few examples. In Zimbabwe, just before the independence, before Mugabe defeated them in the elections, the independence elections, they did all manner of things. For some of you who have read history or who are old enough to remember, they had Abel Muzorewa, they had Nemandingi Sitole, they had Joshua Nkomo, they had Robert Mugabe, all wanting to be the first presidents of an independent Zimbabwe. Before elections that were won by Mugabe, they actually appointed Muzorewa as the acting leader of Zimbabwe. They just appointed him. And then there were machineries put in place for people to come together saying they have agreed. There were handshakes, many handshakes in Zimbabwe. Not one, many. And they would come into a hall like this. It would be all decked in very expensive, clothing and whatnot. People will be wearing very expensive suits. They will be riding in very expensive limousines. They will have bodyguards. They will address the international press. And you thought the war was over. Mugabe can't win. Then this man comes from nowhere and says, no, he disagrees. And he won the elections. That's how Mugabe won. Now, of course, when you look without historical hindsight, you thought he just came into the scene from nothing. No, he had been jailed for 10 years. Then when he left, he went to Ghana to seek refuge. Nkrumah was still the president of Ghana. Nkrumah gave him refuge. Then he got trained with the support of the Soviet Union and also China. At the time, there was the Cold War. So that is how Mugabe became who he became. Of course, later on, he metamorphosed into a dictator. But at the time that they were fighting for independence, he stood firm. The same thing happened in Namibia. The same thing happened in Mozambique. The same thing happened in Angola. The same thing has replicated itself all over Africa. It's not just in Kenya. The only country that did not experience this is Tanzania. Because Mwalimu Julius Nyerere stood firm, steadfast throughout his life. He never wavered. He never compromised. He never allowed these extraneous, capitalistic, parasitic tendencies to capture his brain. But they were always there. Do you remember, for some of you when you were growing up, the word ujamaa was a bad word. Yet ujamaa means coming together. Can you imagine making coming together to be a bad word? They said, oh, that will bring poverty, will create chaos. Just the same way they are saying NRM is bad. Yet, the same people saying that resistance in the national resistance movement means violence are in bed with Museveni, whose party is National Resistance Movement. So in Uganda, resistance is peace. In Kenya, resistance is violence. And they think you're so stupid. We are not that stupid. The same people are telling you that, let's say, for example, we say National Revolutionary Movement. That would be bad. But they are in bed with a regime in Cuba, which is revolutionary. He just came from Cuba. How come he did not go to, and he's begging them to send him doctors. So it is good when he goes. And he's in bed with the Chinese. And that is a communist party of China. So when it is in China and the name is communist, it is a good word. When we use it in Kenya, it's a bad word. We are not that stupid. We are not that stupid. Because as I said, it is the material substance that makes the difference. So yes, you could have a revolutionary movement or party that is retrogressive, that is just using the word just as a word. And then there is a place where it is used with content. When you examine it, you see content in it. This is the difference between the NRM and them. That is why they banned us. And they say they banned something that they did not register. We are not registered. And we don't intend to be registered. We don't intend to register because you can't register a movement. A movement organically sprouts and grows because it is an idea. It is in the minds of the people. It is in their soul. They move with it. And once we achieve that, what we set out to do, then we can leave the field for people who want to run for political power, because now you will be able to decide democratically who a true leader that represents your wishes and aspirations are, without state interference, without police influence, without bribery, without extraneous factors. You keep on shouting, my friend, the one wearing the T-shirt. I don't know why you do that. You think that that is the way I talk? I don't talk like that. So if you meant it satirically or sarcastically, I want to correct you. I don't do that, all right? But if you're saying it as a demonstration of support, then I welcome it. Yes, because I don't know the intention. Okay, good. But I just want to make it clear that we want to be very serious in this discourse. So I'm going to take your questions after I have concluded, and this is my conclusion. When I said I was going to go around the world and do the tour, many people thought that I was joking. I think many of you will realize by this time that I don't say anything I'm not going to do. I never do. If I say I'm going to do it, I will do it. Or at least I will try doing it. All right? Now, as I said, NRM or myself, we are not perfect. We're just human beings like you. We're just trying to deal with the situation the best way that we know how. We are not preventing anybody from doing anything. We are not telling people they must join us. But if they believe in our ideals, we are encouraging to do so and to give their all. But we are disciplined. We are not going to exhibit the tendencies that you have seen exhibited by other Kenyan politicians and parties. One, we don't care about the numbers. So if they can generate more numbers, that will not influence us. That will not even impress us. Because noise is not substance. As I said, a small committed group is more powerful than a lot of people. You've seen me debating with a lot of their surrogates in TV stations. They come, many of them. Sometimes there are 5, whatever. It does not matter. As long as you're focused and you know your facts and you use reason and logic, you cannot be bowed and they will not defeat you. That is what they fear. So we are recruiting, we are opening branches, we are trying to spread the same message. But we are also asking for financial support. And we are not going to apologize for doing so. These people have stolen your money, and that is what they are using to hire Cambridge Analytica and all these manenos in order to dominate. And we are not going to fight them effectively if we don't have resources. So to mobilize people, you need resources. To be able to protect yourself, you need resources. To be able to move and meet the cadres of the movement, you need resources. So coming here, I spent resources that people donate. I didn't buy the ticket myself. The ticket was bought for me. I didn't pay for the hotel where I'm staying. It was done for me. I'm going to go back to London, and I'm going to Oxford University to speak to them. They organized it. The Oxford University did. In London, Kenyans in London did. My ticket to Kenya was bought by Kenyans. So I'm not going to claim that I'm rich. I'm not at all. I don't have any money to spend on this. It has to be us supporting us. Because for too long, you have even donated to many of these parties. Rarely do they even write a thank you note. Rarely do they take your telephones when you call them after they get the power. Rarely. My telephone number from the time I was in Toronto to the time I went to Kenya in 2007 is still the same. I never changed it even when I was working as the advisor for the Prime Minister. Because the moment you do that, you have become somebody else. And my phone is never picked by anyone else. I pick it myself. Because what are you running away from? If you are honest, why are you hiding? The moment you start doing that, something has changed. And it cannot be a good change. It is a bad change. You become deceptive. You've become hypocritical. You're taking advantage of people. The moment you have the preponderance of leaders behaving that way, Kenya will not develop infrastructurally, socially, culturally, technologically. Because these people don't care about you. They're not patriotic to Kenya. So you ask the question about the passport, and I believe even citizenship. Let me tell you something. Take the German citizenship. Happily. It doesn't diminish your patriotism. It's a practical thing. For now, you are in Germany. And if citizenship gives you some benefits, take it. Because you did not force yourself here. You found yourself here because of conditions people have created that you have nothing to do with. You just found them there. Yes, we have not removed those conditions, but they're there. And for that reason, you could have been running your NGO in Kenya. You could have been doing something else in Kenya. But unfortunately, you're doing it in Germany. Why? Because they took your 15 laptops, which you could have helped a lot of people in the village to help themselves with, to be able to develop. So that's the kind of people. And legally, you don't lose your citizenship because you've taken German citizenship. Somebody made a reference to something that I wanted to address. He said something changed in 1996. Nothing changed. There is no law that changed that said that if you take German citizenship, you lose Kenyan citizenship. No law. The thing they were dangling, and of course the court now has proven them to be wrong, that when Miguna became a Canadian citizen, he needed to reapply to become a Kenyan. There's no such law. The Constitution is the supreme law, and there is no such provision in the Constitution. Because any time any statute contradicts the Constitution prevails. So open the Constitution and show me the provision. There is none. It just says every Kenyan has a right to dual citizenship. It doesn't say when. It doesn't say 1996. Once you get that dual citizenship, it cannot be taken away from you retroactively. You see, when I had the passport on the 6th of February when they took it, the Constitution had been ratified in 2010. How do you go back pre-Constitution to take away my passport, a Constitution that is no longer in force? The old Constitution is dead. So how do you use it to tell me now that you're taking my passport? You can't. Because law only operates proactively, not retroactively. You pass a law today, you can say it comes into effect tomorrow or next year. But you cannot say this law was in effect yesterday and it was enacted today. That's the ABCD of law. It's common sense. So they know they are wrong. And then the same Constitution recognizes that I'm a Kenyan by birth. And you, if you are born in Kenya, is a Kenyan by birth. And your parents and your ancestors were born in Kenya. That right by birth, being a citizen, cannot be taken away from you until you die. Cannot, by law, be taken away from you. Because the Constitution did not give you that right. The birth gave it to you. It is a birthright. Your mother gave it to you. So, of course, if they can prove that my mother gave birth to me in Toronto, yes. I would be a Toronto. The first time I went to Toronto, I was a teenager. It was 1988, June 25th. That's when I landed in Toronto. That's the first time I was in Toronto. Anybody else saying anything else, it's nonsense. Then, of course, you can't become a citizen because you have landed in a city. I've been now in Berlin since yesterday. I've not become a citizen. But you know, they said I was a citizen because I landed in Toronto. And I am not a citizen here because of the nature of passport I came with. Passport does not vest citizenship. Passport is a travel document. Anybody can have it. The German government can give me a passport today, I'm not a citizen, just to facilitate my travel. Any government can give you any travel document, anytime they so deem. The UN can give you a travel document. If your travel is necessary, they believe it is important, and somebody is restricting it, they can. There are some international NGOs with travel documents that will be able to facilitate your travel. There are times you don't need it. When the country says, like Germany, I think, said 2 years ago, let them come, the Syrians, right? They didn't have anything. They just came. So all this is nonsense, what they've been telling you. Miguna became a citizen, so that's why he went to Canada. No, 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 no. I traveled on a UN document, which was given to me by the UNHCR, legitimate. But I was not a Canadian citizen. The UN recognized my case in 1988 because they did what they did to me recently exactly the same way in 1987, November 14th. They detained me for 2 weeks. They came into my door, 5 of them armed. They kidnapped me. They detained me. They expelled me from the university. And they told me my life had come to an end. But I have this. I told them, you're joking. My life has come to an end. I'm going to plot something. I did. I left. And the rest is history. So it's not like they started this yesterday, even with respect to me. Even then, they canceled my passport. In November 1987, they canceled my passport. The same despots. That's why I'm telling you this system has not changed for 55 years. They did the exact same thing they did to me on February 2nd. They did the same thing in 1987 when I was a student. My crime, 1, being a revolutionary student, being a student leader, and telling Moi that he had to change his tendencies. He had to let Kenya be a democracy. That he had to let Jaramogi Oginga Odinga run for elections. I told Moi. And trying to go for an international union, students' union meeting in Havana, Cuba. They said I was going for revolutionary training. So they did the same thing. The point is, nothing has changed. All these things you are seeing are form, not substance. Anybody who tells you something has changed is a liar. All right? As I said, the deaths, these people have not come back to life. All right? The people who stole elections have not recognized that they stole elections, and they are not willing to let the IBC be independent. They are not willing to let the judiciary be independent. You have seen in my cases, they have disobeyed court order after court order. The last time was March 12th, last week. The Court of Appeal told them to give me back my passport again after the High Court did. They have not delivered my passport, but I'm going on March 26th. I will be in Nairobi on March 26th. Come rain, come high water. So they will try other things. The point is, I am not going to be cowed. I'm not going to be threatened. I'm not going to allow a despot to dictate my destiny in this world. And we, as NRM, are not going to be compromised on the basis of a handshake. We are not going to be. No matter how few we are. And as you can see, it is not chooky. We are not malicious. We are not doing this because we hate anybody. We are doing this because these issues are so fundamental, so important, and that if they are not done, we are back 50 years. And all your children and your children's children will inherit a country that is worse than Somalia, and we cannot accept that. Our children will not forgive us for not doing anything about it. They would say, why didn't you do something about it? You see, it's almost like the Holocaust. You know, I hate to say this, but they always did. They came for Jew, and you said nothing. They came for the communist, and you said nothing. Then they came for the writer. You said nothing because you're not a writer, because you're not a Jew, because you're not a communist. Then when they came for you, there was nobody to say anything. Thank you.
Put your hands together for our General Miguna.